As cybercrime grows more sophisticated day by day, so do technical defenses. But great technology is no match for an employee clicking on a simple phishing email. Psychological security is designed to protect the human mind from manipulations that lead to compromises. Today's guest is Adam Anderson. Adam is chairman of the board for Hook Security and a serial cybersecurity entrepreneur. He is one of the founders of the psychological security movement. Psychological security, or Psy-Sec, was born to create new technologies and processes to help build resilient human minds that can resist manipulations through technology. I'm your host, Chris Parker, and this is the Easy Prey Podcast. Adam, thank you so much for coming on the Easy Prey Podcast today.
I am thrilled to be here. I'm excited about what we're going to talk about. This is all good stuff.
Awesome. Can you tell our audience who you are and how you got to be where you're at?
Yes, I am Adam Anderson. I am a Virgo. I used to enjoy long walks on the beach, but I am getting older and I like those walks to be shorter. Sometimes I just stare at the water. But I am a serial cybersecurity entrepreneur. I've launched about 21 companies and I've done the cybersecurity thing for a little over 20 years. My first gig was this little thing called Y2K. And back in 1999, you're welcome. I'll take all the credit I deserve, which is, let's not dig into it. But yeah, I am just wildly excited about cybersecurity because what I think cybersecurity's role in our world is to make sure that it functions as intended, right? We got all these bad guys trying to disrupt what we're doing, take what we have. And I think that we make a better planet and a better world by organizations doing their mission. And cybersecurity is what steps in to really enable these folks to do their jobs without having to worry about the kind of disruptions that they might face. So it's a heavy burden that we're carrying, but I believe that if we do the right things, we might even have a chance of eradicating cybercrime as we know it in 30 years. It's a thing, but it's going to take some time.
It will definitely take some time because there's humans involved, and humans are almost always the weakest link when it comes to security.
Goodness, right? The human part of it is exactly what we're talking about today. That was my conclusion, right? I mean, how many of us have built cyber fortresses? And it's glorious, right? We're doing 72 hours straight installs. We're doing all the things, and we finally go home, and our spouses are proud of us, and like, oh, you did it, you secured the company, and then somebody in accounting clicked on an email they shouldn't, and they lowered the drawbridge, and you're like, I don't even know what I'm doing here anymore. What was that 72 hours for? And it's a thing, right? And it's not that they're stupid. I don't resonate with the ID10T error or there's a problem with the interface between the chair and the keyboard comments anymore. I remember back in the day, we used to call the business side end losers, not end users, because it always seemed like they were making silly mistakes. And it's taken me a very, very long time to realize, no, that's not the case at all. They're actually producing just a crazy amount of value for the organization, and security is an afterthought to them.
Yeah.
They're busy doing the mission. And I think that's an important distinction, right? At least it was for me, on how I began to see the overarching problem of cybersecurity and, what my role in that was.
Yeah, I mean, I've spent a great many years in IT as well, and we in the IT field look at everything through an IT lens. Why don't you understand how computers work? Why don't you understand how technology works? There must be something wrong with you, when those on the other side are saying, like, why don't you understand how people work? Why don't you understand how to be nice?
That's right. Where's your social skills, brother? Bring them to the table. We really would appreciate it.
So there's definitely two viewpoints on this.
Right. Well, I wrote a book called Emotional Intelligence for Cybersecurity Professionals, which my mother thought was great. I don't think anyone else has read it, and that's fine. I'm good enough here. I don't need you to. But the whole premise was the number one cybersecurity risk facing the world was the nerd's inability to have a conversation with a CFO and win budget. Because if you can't communicate clearly and effectively human to human, you don't get the funding to do the projects to reduce the risk. And it's I think it is just that simple, that if the human interaction is the key to security and being safe.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, for lots of large institutions and probably even smaller ones, it's the security incident which raises awareness of security issues. It's some failure happened, and
Yes.
it's either been a financial loss to the company or a PR nightmare because, oh gosh, we spilled 100,000 names, address, social security numbers, banking info to the public.
Right.
And now we are dealing with the backlash. So let's take a step back. And I know that there's something that you want to add to security. What are the kind of the existing pillars of security as you see it?
Well, right. So security is traditionally broken into two things. You have your corporate security, which is often referred to as physical security. Think guards, gates, guns, booths, all that kind of stuff, where you have the physical deterrents that are set up to stop a human being from walking into a facility, walking into an organization, and doing something they're not supposed to. And then you have info security, which is all about how do we protect data? How do we protect all of the cyber infrastructure, the digital infrastructure? And so you have cybersecurity, also known as InfoSec, and then you have physical security or physical security. I have no idea how to make that into a blank sec, right? Whatever, it's fine. But what we were finding is that both of those were super vulnerable to social manipulation or, social engineering. And you can think of the physical security as the con man, right? Somebody who is just wildly slick, very charismatic, or okay enough that they trigger your desire to help them, and then they're able to manipulate you through that. And the same thing's true on the cyber side. Mm-hmm. And as we talked about these giant cybersecurity fortresses that these folks build, then you have somebody click on a thing. Well, that's due to a manipulation of the person and not the technology. So after about 20 years at this, being very frustrated, I realized that we had to do something about that. So I founded a company called Hook Security. I built it up a little bit and immediately fired myself because I start things, I don't run them. So now I am chairman of the board of Hook Security, and I've got an amazing team who's doing the things. The CEO, by the way, I have to brag for just a moment. I didn't hire a cybersecurity person to run this company. I hired a guy who was a successful educator who had launched 2 high schools and middle school and was on the cutting edge on how people learn, because this goes into the third sphere or the third pillar of psychological security, which is how do you build a resilient brain that resists manipulation through technology or through coercion or any of these social engineering platforms. Mm-hmm. And look, we've been depending on the cybersecurity guy to handle it because it's often through, the technology that we get attacked. So we say, well, that must be a cyber crime. You need to handle that cybersecurity guy. And meanwhile, I'm over here saying, I got these firewalls and I've got patch management and I've got all these things. I'm blocking and tackling like crazy. How much more budget are you going to give me? Are you going to give me more resources? No, you got it. You're fine. And we're just asking so much. But what I realized, nobody asks a cybersecurity guy to carry a gun and guard a gate.
Yeah.
So why in the world are we asking them to take over the responsibilities of securing the human mind? It just makes no sense. So that's where my mission right now is to say, yes, we have physical security, we have info security, but now we need psychological security. We need Psy-Sec. And my posit to the world is it's time to have that be its own market, its own pillar, its own resource. Put it in the new standards. Let's focus on the human mind as its own thing.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense that you want IT people, security, physical security people to keep working the physical security. You wouldn't expect those guys to be doing firmware patches and things like that.
Nope.
And you wouldn't expect the cybersecurity guys, like you said, to be carrying a gun, walking around the building in the middle of the night. Although they probably do walk around the building in the middle of the night, but they just don't carry a gun.
Oh, this Red Bull or some kind of energy drink. Like, how do I fix this problem? I don't know. I'll just more caffeine.
Somehow, IT guys always end up working nights, weekends, and holidays when everybody else is off.
Yeah, I heard no bitterness in that, or personal experience.
I believe this is my rant. This is my vent. I think probably the closest one of those that I had was coming in with a team of people to do some server migrations the Friday morning after Thanksgiving, and we worked all the way through until everybody rolled in the office Monday morning.
But they got you pizza. Did they?
It was sandwiches, I think.
Oh, fair. They fed you.
They fed us. But it was one of those things. Everybody else was like, "Oh, wow, I had this great Thanksgiving weekend," and all the rest of the IT guys are like, "I just want to go home."
That's exactly right. Oh, sleep on the floor. Nope.
But it makes sense that you don't want the IT guys trying to train on human interface, so to speak.
Absolutely.
That's not their skill set, and it's unreasonable to expect that they would be the right person to do that.
No, I love the way you put that, the human interface, right? It's and in the same reason why people are susceptible. Well, so if you look at that example where somebody clicked on something, right, that they shouldn't. Well, let's pretend the dude's name is Bill, and Bill is in marketing, and what Bill is really good at is marketing. He is amazing at creating copy. He's amazing at all of this stuff. And for us to say we want you to be less amazing and put this awareness in your brain about how cybercrime works, and we try to train that person to be a cybersecurity expert, that just doesn't work. That's the wrong thing, right? But when you look at it as the human brain is a computer and the interface, and we try to put IT methodologies to play on how to train and how to educate people, where we are successful to a certain point, but it isn't. But there is no company out there or no organization out there where that strategy is getting them below like 5%, right? It's still a 95% safe. 5% not safe. But if you have 100,000 employees, yeah, I mean, they're coming in, bro.
5% is not a high. 5% mistake is too high,
without a doubt. And that's okay. It's all right, because before we had 100% vulnerability. So the fact we brought it down to 5%, I am not throwing shade at what we have done up to this point. All I'm suggesting is it's time to take that next step.
So how do you envision that next step being taken?
Ooh, okay. So let's get into the brain. What we're doing right now is training the cognitive processing part of the brain. And that brain only has a certain amount of bandwidth. I'm going to get the number wrong, but I think it's about 128 bits of processing power. And that's your cognitive brain, and you have to teach it and learn it. And that's exactly what we did through school with route memorization. And there's a lot of effort that goes into cognitive brain functions before you put it back into muscle memory. So we're all very familiar with that. Here's your vocabulary word list. Memorize it. Oh, crap. And some of us are really good at it. Most of us are not. And even after repetitive training, you get to about 80% of people get it, 20% don't.
And then they all forget it 3 days after the test.
And that's exactly right. And so you keep on doing it, boom, 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 right? And so what we say and what we're looking at, and the science actually is pretty old, we want to move it from the cognitive training that happens in the brain's frontal cortex, and we want to move it back into the older parts of the brain, the amygdala. The amygdala? You would think I would learn to pronounce this word, that I say it enough, but I'm like, nah, lizard brain, just call it that, right? But this is the lowest part of the not the lowest, but one of the lower part of the brains. And this is the part of the brain that doesn't have the capacity for language. It has the capacity to act, though. This is what gets triggered when you see a snake and you jump before you even know that there's a snake there.
So it's the fight, flight, or freeze response?
That is it. Yep, that's exactly it. So what we are trying to do, and what we believe we've succeeded at, and now what we're trying to do is apply this to Psy-Sec, is that there are studies that have been done, there's research, and there are methodologies for training that fight or flight response without having the frontal cortex cognitively know what's going on. So this new approach is to apply these kinds of sciences to the fight or flight response. Now, there are, and this is my favorite part of it, there's two ways to lay down memories and lay down these fight or flights. And it's usually between humor and horror. You either scare the crap out of somebody or you make them laugh. Well, one is not. We've tried this before, right? FUD.
Yes.
We scare the crap out of you, and eventually you become desensitized to the fear. Right. I think back to there's World War II, London's being bombed, and eventually the Londoners just walk around like their normal day because they just reach a capacity where they can't process the fear, and they just throw it away. And that's what happens. I might get budget the first time I tell you that we need it and scare the crap out of you, but I'm probably not going to get it the fifth time.
Yeah.
And so the idea is the same thing with training, is when you can get a humorous response and you can entertain a person, they become so much more receptive to being trained. And we say that cybersecurity and psychological security are far too important to be taken seriously. We got to have some fun with this.
So what I hear you saying is people are better at remembering what happened on a Friends episode.
What's that funny thing Joey said that one time? Bam, 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 right?
Exactly.
Yes, you are. That is a very good. That is. I'm going to steal that. I'm going to use that in my next talk. I'll be like, and now you can remember what happened in episode do, right? Yeah, because humor is sticky. Horror is sticky, but we don't want to live in that other side. You don't build healthy cultures inside of organizations when you scare the crap out of people. What you do is, if you can encourage someone to have an entertaining experience while they're in the middle of training, and then they share that funny thing with somebody next to them, you end up getting a train the trainer, and you spread a healthy culture as a side effect of security, which I absolutely love, because I believe security's job is to facilitate the operations of the organization and prevent disruption. And so if we can be the guys everyone wants to hang out with at the Christmas party, dude, how cool would that be?
That would be awesome.
It's like, Chris isn't in the corner anymore. He's at the cool kid table. I'm with security. Oh, we love you. Come in, man. Your jokes are hilarious. Oh, right. So yeah, that's the kicker. There is the progression from where we are is almost every company on the planet right now, and the Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 has some kind of cyber awareness training that is shoving information into the frontal cortex and trying to take up that amazing, talented marketing person's bandwidth for producing the genius that they're hired for, by forcing them to become a cybersecurity expert. But where we're heading with the new sciences and the new technologies that we're getting from other people's research is how do we get that fight, flight, and freeze programmed the way it needs to be in that lower brain.
And so is that what Hook Security does? You do training for people?
Yeah, so we are in that cyber awareness training vertical, and we're doing the same kind of things that everybody else is doing, because the new sciences and the new technologies aren't actually produced right to the point where we're ready to go with all that. But that's what's in the hopper. So as we get ready for that, we apply a lot of the different sciences as we're still doing some of that frontal cortex training, because you still need to have some of that. But it's really designed to be a platform where when the science is ready to go, we can launch it. And let me be clear, the science is ready to go, but we have to be very, very careful how we use this. Because as soon as we have something out there that says I can, subconsciously reprogram a human being through entertainment. Oh, did I say Facebook? Wait, I didn't mean to say that. So you get where I'm going, is what we're being very, very careful with the thing that we're dealing with, because it's a powerful tool that if you don't use it correctly, it can be abused. And so this isn't a rush it to market thing. This is to get it right and get it safe so that we do good in the world and not provide tools for harm. Mm-hmm.
So do you have kind of like this specific list of cybersecurity elements that you're wanting to address? Let's say spear phishing.
Yeah. So I want to do all of the social engineerings. Eventually, what we do is we will provide this training through all of the attack vectors. So we'll have people doing phone calls. We'll have text messages. You'll get emails. You'll go social media platforms. People will walk through the front door and try to get, right, all of the social engineering terms. But what we eventually want to do is find a real direct way of saying that no matter where this is coming from, it's still all the same training. And by the way, I want to take this one step further. I want to give this to my kids. I want them to be able to detect fake news. I need them to be able to detect manipulation through marketing. I can see when Psy-Sec gets solidified, we're going to be able to apply it to an awful lot of places.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had hired a business coach, and one of the things that we had talked about early on was he was just kind of like, "What do you do in your regular day? When do you do this? When do you do that? And he was like, "Do you use Facebook?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I use Facebook." And he's like, "Well, do you have notifications turned on?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I have notifications turned on." I was like, "Well, how many notifications are you getting a day?" And I was like, "Oh, wonderful thing is these, the phones will tell you that now." It's like, I got 45 notifications. That means that was 45 times that I prairie dogged or whatever they call it, meerkat stood up and looked at something. And I was like, oh my gosh, like you don't realize how, I don't know that insidious is the right word or invasive is the right word. Maybe they are, but and I don't think there's evil intent behind it. They're just trying to make sure that you come back to the platform.
I think you're really hitting on something here, because social engineering is no different than typical marketing. Marketing is there to introduce you to a concept that you might be find valuable, and then encourage you to take a next step. Social engineering is exactly the same thing. It's just that the punchline is different, right? Yeah. So with marketing, hopefully you find a product or service or experience that enriches your life. For social engineering, you're enriching someone's life. It's just not yours, right? And not your organization. But when you were talking, I was thinking about Netflix. Netflix has gotten to the point where it will change the thumbnail picture for the movie or show, depending on your other experiences, whatever else you're watching, so that you will be more likely to click on that movie with a different thumbnail. So if your listeners can take one thing away, there's a database, you're in it. You're a product, and if you're getting something for free, you're the product. If you're paying something low, you're the product. The amount of interactions we have online are fueling these business intelligent engines using machine learning to customize your experience. And I want to be real clear. I'm thankful for it, because I am watching a lot more cool shows on Netflix. However, there's so much happening behind the scenes that I don't understand. What I want is not to disrupt and stop marketing from working. I don't want jobs to stop happening. I want somebody to be able to recognize that it's happening and choose to be thankful or not, to choose to participate in the manipulation or to have control and resilience against it. So I don't want to stop the behaviors. I just want the person in control of it.
Yeah, and I think some of that is a result of just that it's machine learning and artificial intelligence. It's not so much that someone is saying, I think that you will find this valuable, but it's just in aggregate, everybody went down this really squirrely rabbit hole. I mean, they called I think they call it the YouTube conspiracy theory rabbit hole. That regardless of what you watch on YouTube, the recommendations will tend towards some sort of extreme, some sort of conspiracy. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then the more of those that we watch, the more of an echo chamber that we get in, and the more of the system feeds itself. And you if you're not paying attention, you don't realize that you're going down this rabbit hole, leading you astray, so to speak.
So in each one of these things, you are outlining a psychological warfare vector, right? And maybe that's a stronger, let's back off psychological warfare. That's different. We're going to leave that to the military. But let's say that you are describing with the YouTube rabbit hole, with the Netflix being able to do the thing. What we're talking about here is that people are understanding how your brain works, and they're giving you triggers. And the idea that it's happened passively, you're trusting big corporations to have your best interests at heart. And I truly don't believe that there's evil people sitting around a boardroom going, ha 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 ha, we're going to make them blah, blah, blah. What I think is going on is we have a responsibility to deliver profits to our shareholders. And what is the way we can maximize this product launch? They're good people solving problems using technology that's at their disposal. Right.
Yeah.
And the problem is when the bad guys who are trying to cause harm use the exact same techniques, use the exact same plays, they're already playing into the we're all wired to help each other. Yeah. That's how we exist as a human race, is that if you say, I need help, I'm going to immediately ask you what's going on, right? Yeah. If you show up authentically vulnerable and ask for help as a human, we get triggered by that. And it's these hardwired responses that marketers and cyber criminals are able to trigger and take advantage of. And again, take advantage of is strong. Mm-hmm. I love marketers. Bless your hearts. You're great. But
it's that whole thing, like when it, gosh, I don't want to say when it works the way it's supposed to versus when it works the way it's not supposed to. I don't know that that's necessarily the right phrasing. But like you said, I love it when Netflix recommends stuff that I would like. I love it when Amazon recommends other books that I might like. To me, that's right. when the technology works right and is recommending kind of entertainment that I will enjoy. I like it. And I don't even mind Google ads and ads being marketed towards me. Trust me, I'd rather see ads for technology than for shoes.
Fair.
Like, yeah, or draperies, or who something that I care. Like, if I'm gonna have to see an ad, I'd rather see an ad for something that's of interest to me, and maybe I'll buy it, maybe I won't. But at least I'm not saying like a red pen. Why are you marketing a red pen to me? Like, I'm not a calligrapher. Well, why are you wasting your time and effort on me?
Like, hey, you might be real good at this. Why don't you give it a shot?
Maybe I would be.
Yeah.
But where I don't like is when we talked about it, when it leads us down these kind of dark or echo chambery things where we don't realize that we've kind of siloed ourselves.
Well, and that's the problem and the joy of the internet, isn't it? Is that never before have we had the ability to find echo chambers. Right. We can find the people who believe what we believe and only hang out with them.
Yeah.
And, I feel that this is a mission that is super important because, yes, I want to stop cybercrime. And yes, I want to do all these things. But when I think of my 12-year-old daughter and I think of her having access to technology, what I am most afraid of is she doesn't have the ability to do critical thinking about what she's seeing and hearing to determine what she believes and take control of that. The fake news, all the manipulation through technology. It's a real strategy that is being deployed to polarize into extremes, because people who are in extremes act. People who are not in extremes are very comfortable and don't do anything. So if I need you to do something, I need horror or humor, right? I need you to go to some kind of extreme.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of commercials that the commercials very much work that way. We'll talk about the positive one. My wife and I always joke whenever we see a Subaru commercial, where's the dog? If I buy a Subaru, are you going to give me a free dog? I mean, they're Please. Working like I really like Subaru commercials because they're working family value. They're working, family, community, taking care of one another. You never see like, hey, we've got the best, fuel economy, or we've got, they might have good fuel economy. They're not promoting, hey, we got, 15 of these whiz bang awards. They're promoting family.
And that's exactly So think about that marketer. They know exactly who they're selling to. They're selling to your wife, who is absolutely focused on family values and all that stuff. And she's assuming the car is safe, otherwise it's not on the road, right? But the marketers understand her triggers. So you go to a cyber criminal who's doing the exact same thing, and they decide they're going to do a spear phishing focused attack on the chief financial officer of Megacorp ABC. They have the same kind of data to know exactly what to put on that person's table in order to. So I have a real world example. Financial controller, CFO of a company gets a email at 4:50 p.m. on a Friday from the CEO saying, "Hey, I'm about to take this trip. I'm going to be out of pocket. I'm about to get on a plane. I need you to send the money wire to blah, 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 blah. Right. And then they do, because there is enough information in that email. Yes, the guy is going on a trip. Yes, there is this. And they know enough because they've done the market research or they've done the intelligence gathering to make it very difficult to detect what's not happening. Right. Mm-hmm. And so it's internal culture and awareness that these things do happen, and it's okay to say, "Is this really you, Bob?" I'm gonna, should have called him, right? I mean, if you can't get it, then the wire's not going through, and the CFO needs to not be punished to not send the wire if it's outside of normal operating procedures, right?
Yeah.
Or if he can't validate it in some other form or fashion.
Yeah, I remember I interviewed a psychologist, kind of like why we fall for scams, and a couple of things that she talked about was, there's an emotional trigger, there's an urgency trigger, and there's an authority trigger.
Yes.
So, and if you combine all three of those, we just, it's whether it's the lizard brain in us, we just, okay, you've hit all my little bells and whistles, and so therefore I'm gonna just willy-nilly just walk into this without even thinking about it. It can be scary.
Well, it's our autopilot, and it's how our society works and how humans interact with each other. And it's completely, I love it. It's magical when it happens in an organic way that helps everybody. But you hit it on the head there. It can be terrifying when somebody knows how all those triggers work and then apply it against us. And it's heavy stuff.
It's almost as if your training is to teach people to almost have like an out of body or an out of mind experience, to be able to disassociate from the situation and kind of evaluate. Is there an emotional trigger? Is there an emergency trigger, urgency trigger? Is there a greed trigger? Is there an authority trigger here? Oh gosh, there's all of those triggers. Let me take a breath and escalate and, have an appropriate response because of that.
And that is the appropriate response. If you could just pause for a moment and say, "Wow, that hit everything. That was well crafted." Whoever is there meaning behind this well crafted message? And if so, what are they actually trying to do? And that is literally it. If we could get the human race to pause after those triggers occur, when we have fight or flight, we have freeze, we have some emotional trigger that is happening and we're on autopilot. If we can just pump the brakes on autopilot for a split second and just look one step farther. Now, I don't believe that this can happen all the time. Yeah. I think that's completely exhausting. So that's why we have to do the work to rewire autopilot. So if you can do anything, right, learning how to pause and to question, is what I'm seeing and what I'm believing about what I'm seeing correct? That is fantastic, right? If you could do that, that's what you should do. You should then also work on reprogramming that autopilot.
Well, it's funny. I think you nailed it on the head there. I think I have reprogrammed the autopilot when it comes to phone calls.
Sure.
I know the voice. I can recognize the voice of my friends and family and people that I know.
Yep.
And when I get a phone call from a number I don't know, it just immediately, gosh, I don't want to say I assume that it's a scam and there's fear running through my. I have no sense of fear about it.
No,
but to
just
me,
aware.
I'm aware of it, and I pick up the phone, and I'm immediately thinking. Now, this is kind of like I deal with scams and stuff, so I immediately start thinking, okay, what's the scam? What are the hooks they trying to use? And I'm like,
it's market research for you.
And I'm doing like the evaluation of like how good of a scam is this when they call?
So good.
It's like how good, like how much. I've been getting more calls these days where people know my name, and so that's not okay. People have gotten it, or text messages. Interestingly, I've been getting like 2 text messages a day with my name, and occasionally a username that I've used in the past. Unfortunately, broad enough that I don't know what source it came from, saying, "Hey, this is a U.S. Postal Service. We have a package that we tried to deliver. It needs your signature. You weren't there when we tried to deliver today. Click on this link."
Yep.
And of course, it's like, whizbang.info. And I'm like, that's not U.S. Postal Service.
It's clickbait.hacker.
Yes. And so like the package ID is A513. And I'm like, well, no, U.S. Postal Service, it's like 16 digits and it's all numbers, no letters. Like, I'm a geek. I know these kind of things. But lots of people don't. But like every time I get one of these, I'm thinking, okay, is this a good one? Is it a bad one? I've had some pretty darn good ones.
So you're raising up something I think is super important. Your perception of the phone is that it is something that you get a lot of value of, but it's also a place where people are going to be calling you and texting you with fraudulent stuff. And before we're like, is that a telemarketer? Is that a cyber criminal? Right. And you can pause in the middle of it because your perception is different. Yeah. And so part of rewiring autopilot is changing what you believe. So I'll give you a real quick example. When my wife gets cut off in traffic, she's furious. She's like, that jerk. He thinks he has the right of way. He just pushed him. Oh my goodness, that jerk. And she's Southern. She has a very colorful vocabulary when it comes to curse words. And then because she believes that and he cuts somebody off again, that just doubles down. So now she's absolutely right. However, when I get cut off in traffic, I think, oh, that poor guy, he probably has to poop. Oh, I hope he makes it. I've been there when I didn't know if I was. I mean, come on. And now that my perception is there's somebody in trouble, and neither one of us know if we're right or wrong. All we know is that guy cut me off and cut another guy off. And from my wife's point of view, he's a horrible human being, and anger and da 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 da. From my point of view, he's really got to use the bathroom, and I hope he makes it on time. Right. And the same thing is true with the technology. So part of this whole journey of Psy-Sec is understanding your own beliefs about what's happening and then being able to take control of your perception of what's happening in the moment. And you're great at that because you're in the middle of all this and you can see it but I'm sure you've got blind spots in certain parts of your life.
Well, and that's the worst thing is we don't know where we have blind spots.
Yes.
Hence it's a blind spot.
Well, and that's why having external help from organizations that say this is an important thing that we're going to need to address is just so valuable, right? And some of it is what I like to call security theater, right? So security theater to me is stuff that makes you feel safe, but it doesn't actually reduce the measurable risk. Mm-hmm. But without that emotional feeling of safety, you don't actually cross the finish line and become ready to be made safe. So I can see that there's a lot of stuff that has to happen on multiple levels from security theater and actual security working well together. Mm-hmm. I heard a puppy, and now all I want to do is see the puppy. So I totally stopped.
So for the listeners, in the green room, we were talking about my dog has a particular time of the day where he has decided it's time for me to eat. And regardless of what I'm doing, he will get up out of his bed, shake. You can hear his dog tags rattle, and within the next 5 minutes, he'll be pawing at me saying, "Hey, Dad, it's time for dinner."
I've never had a dog say, "Adam, that's enough. You need to stop." No, that's fantastic, though. I mean, so summary, it is absolutely imperative, I believe, that we treat this seriously, that it's not just another cybersecurity problem. It's not just another thing. And we are throwing a burden on our uber nerds and our super smart people who are keeping us safe on technology by having them try to understand all of the nuances of what the stuff we just talked about. This should be a psychologist and HR problem, not a cyber geek problem. So,
I mean, I totally agree. Allow people to work in their areas of expertise. Let the marketer be a great marketer. Let the IT guy, let the security guys be great at what they do.
Yep.
And bring in psychologists and people that can help us rewire our brains in positive ways.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Not negative ways. We don't want that. No Kool-Aid, no,
Intentional with good in mind.
Yes, with good intention in mind. And I love that you're thinking that way for your daughter of like, okay, how can I train her? I think that's going to be I don't think that it will be. It is an incredibly valuable skill to be able to step out of the moment and evaluate a situation. I think lots of people, the lizard brain kicks in and they're on autopilot and they don't even think until afterwards, oh my gosh, why did I do that? Why did I say that? Why didn't I just hang up the phone? Why did I engage with a scammer?
Yep.
I think there's a lot of benefits just even outside of, cybersecurity or, a security construct. It just helps us in a whole lot of areas of our lives beyond.
Well, and none of this is new science. It's just we need to apply it in a way that makes a lot of sense for today's day and age.
That's really cool. This is a field I'm definitely going to be watching. If people want to learn more about what your company's doing, how do they find it? How do they find you?
You go to hooksecurity.co. That's hooksecurity.co. Hooksecurity.com was taken by a very nice guy in Tennessee who owns a private guard system. And we just like, you know what? He gets it. So it's hooksecurity.co. And if you want to find me, I'm available on LinkedIn, or you can find me on my YouTube channel, Adam Anderson, CEO.
Great. Adam, thank you so much for sharing with our audience today.
Thank you for having me. This has been a blast.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Easy Prey podcast. If you like this episode, help support the podcast and our mission by leaving a review at easyprey.com/review. Notes and a transcript of this episode with Adam Anderson can be found at easyprey.com/37.